So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Loved His Pervy Stepsister Gwen Tennyson. So let's start the series. Life for Nami no Uzumaki Naruto in the village of Konoha has been nothing short of horrible, and it all had to do with the fact that he had the yang chakra of the Kyuubi no Yoko in him sealed by the diseased Hiruzen Sarutobi. As if that wasn't bad enough, his ability to use chakra was all but lost. His faith, the man who gave birth to him, never paid attention to him. All the attention from his parents was given to his twin sister, the supposed hero of the leaf, for keeping the Yin part of the Kyuubi's chakra and having as much chakra as her mother and father. Because of that, she was able to do everything they taught her. They doted on her and left him in the dark like an unused piece of paper. He tried to ask his parents to learn the basics of sealing, but the answer was always negative. No, Naruto, sealing is dangerous for you, his father said. Why don't you help encourage your sister in completing her new skill? His mother said. To top it all off, his sister was being a bitch of the entire situation because of all the attention she was getting from their parents and godfather, the Toad Sannin, Jiraiya, and their godbrother, Kakashi, added to the fact that the village abuse him every corner, call him names and form mobs to attack him. Today was their 8th birthday, and they, including Jiraiya, all went out, leaving him behind in the house and with nothing left to do. He went to the forest of death to train, wishing himself a happy birthday, hoping something good will happen in his life to him for once. Naruto was sitting under a tree wearing brown shorts, a blue shirt and an orange sleeveless hoodie that was over his head, tired from the punching he gave the tree. He looked up in the sky thinking how nice the stars were and saw a shooting star. I wish I had the power to leave this place on my own and have a comfortable life, he wished as he closed his eyes. As he opened his eyes, he saw the shooting star change its direction, heading straight to his area. He had to leave fast before it hit, and when it crashed, a crater was formed from the star. A curious Naruto walked to the crater to see a cylindrical object in his smoking from the intense heat it gathered. He walked to inspect it, and when he got closer, the object opened up as if it was keeping something safe, and what he saw there sort of took his world for a spin. Sitting in the object was an item that resembles a wristwatch. It has a square faceplate and has a white and green color scheme. The faceplate is black with 2 green stripes forming an outline for the hourglass. Naruto reached for the object with his left hand but was surprised when it latched onto his wrist. Now, as a child of the 4th Hokage, Naruto knew when to be calm in situations like this, so he was as calm as he could be and inspected the watch on his wrist. When he saw what looked like dials on it, he pressed both of them together, and an image of several creatures appeared as playlists for him to pick. As he was about to scroll the different selections, a hologram, he knows what it is, appeared, showing a small gray creature with large green eyes and something that resembled a mustache on its face. He looked old and wise, and Naruto was surprised as the creature knew who he was. Greetings, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. My name is Azimuth, and I am the creator of this version Omnimatrix, or simply, Omnitrix on your wrist. I sent it to you knowing what life you lived. Yes, I know how your family treated you. I couldn't let that stand, so I built a device powerful enough to help you leave the village and find a proper family who will raise you like their own. Not only that, in case the original version of the Omnitrix I send doesn't make it to the right destination and falls in the wrong hands, you probably are the only being on the planet powerful enough to beat him or her. I sent coordinates to the location of a family that would be glad to have you as their child, as it would calm their lives and yours. Train hard and may the stars be with you, the hologram said as it disappeared from view. Naruto was intrigued at what just happened, but he knew that he had to get home because someone had to have noticed the crash site. He just didn't know it, but his wish was just granted indirectly. 2 years later. It's been 2 years since a 7-year-old Naruto found the Omnitrix in the Forest of Death. 1 year since he had gained mastery of his forms, and with the help of Grey Matter, an alien that was from the same clan as Azimuth, he was able to unlock the master control of the Omnitrix. Now he can transform into all 15 different species at any given time, but he knew that he was still weak to fight on his own, so in the year that just passed, he was able to master 15 species. Of the different species he had, his most favorite was Chitrax, ultimate alien, fast track, an alien based on speed and strength, but the downside was the streaks it left behind. His other favorite alien was Wrath. He was a 9 feet tall and resembles an orange and white bipedal tiger with 1 claw coming out of each wrist and no tail. He had a very interesting way of speech. But that wasn't all. He was really strong and had enhanced senses like most other species. He also had a few other favorites like Siberian, Big Chill, hot spot, heat blast, ordnance for arms, an elevation upgrade. His least favorite was maxilla, ripped jaws, because of the need for water. Today marked another year to Naruto's life as he left his room in black baggy pants, an orange short-sleeved shirt with a pair of orange sneakers. He walked down the stairs with a scowl on his face as he heard the party being thrown for his sister. "Happy birthday, Nami," his father said. "That's right, today is your 9th birthday," his father said, "and I think it's time to see what we got you," his godbrother said. Naruto just waited patiently leaning on the stair rail for someone to notice him, but he knew that wasn't going to happen, so he watched as they started showering his twin with presents. Even the clan heads and their children were here to celebrate their birthday or his sister's birthday. First was Kakashi, who brought out a scroll for one of his techniques she'll need in the future. The second was Tsum, who got her a puppy, someone she could play around it, and the sight was sort of refreshing. The third were the Ino Shikicho, who settled for a gift certificate and a shogi board. The fourth was Hisashi, who handed her an envelope that she was to open later. The fifth was from her mother, who just gave her the Uzumaki clan's famous sword, Red Death. The sixth was from her father, who presented a water balloon and gave it to her, something that infuriated him and surprised some people there who knew what it meant. But his father said that he had another surprise for later. "Okay, I think it's time for my present," Jiraiya said as he weaved out hand signs and a scroll appeared on his hand. "Isn't she a little young to be signing the summoning scroll?" a curious yet excited Minato Namikaze asked. Jiraiya just waved off his student's worry and handed the scroll to an excited Nami, who just quickly signed it without any second thought right under her father's name. "I'm so proud!" Kushina gushed out to her daughter as she signed the contract. "Before you know it, she'll be stronger than her old man," Choza Akamichi spoke out with his jovial voice. Minato ignored it and got everyone's attention. "Can I have your attention, please?" Minato asked, and as he saw everybody focus on him, he continued, "I would like to announce the ascension of my daughter as rightful clan heir to the Uzumaki Namikaze clan. She has earned that responsibility, and I hope she doesn't abuse it," he announced to the shocked crowd, who was silent at this announcement. Clap, clap. Everybody turned around to the long-forgotten child that was clapping at this announcement on the stairway. They were shocked that they forgot him and that it was supposed to be his birthday, to making some of them feel guilty, and the rest either annoyed or indifferent. "Bravo, Namikaze-sama, bravo!" the still clapping Naruto announced. "Naruto?" Kushina asked, shocked that she forgot about her son. "You know, I was wondering when you were finally going to pull this stunt. Some part of me prayed that it won't happen, but after the events just witnessed," Naruto said as he walked down the stairs to the door with his hands in his pocket. "What the heck, Naruto? Can't you see you're ruining my party?" Nami rudely asked her twin. Nami was like a mini carbon copy of Kushina. She had on blue trousers and an orange long-sleeved blouse with a pair of blue shinobi sandals. "Ya loser, leave us alone!" an 8-year-old Ino shouted. That actually hurt a bit, coming from her of all people. Ino was a small girl with blonde hair and pale blue eyes. She wore a simple orange shirt and black trousers and brown trousers. She used to be his only friend in the village when he was 4 years old, after his parents left him in the ramen stand. It wasn't until he told her who his family was that she abandoned him for his sister like his parents did. So for her to insult him actually hurt, but he ignored her and continued. "Oh, I don't intend on staying," Naruto said as he reached for the door and grabbed the handle. "If this is how this family is going to be all the time, then I'm glad I was just expelled from the clan." And with that said, Naruto left the house and slammed the door on the way out. With the shocked family, slap. Minato Namikaze held his red cheek as it was slapped by his wife, who was currently glaring at him with her purple eyes. "I thought I told you not to go through with it." Kushina yelled at her husband, enraged at what he did. Minato winced at being yelled at his wife, but Kushina. "Don't you but Kushina me. When Naruto gets home, you'll retract the ascension, am I understood?" She didn't even wait for an answer as she left her house in the same manner that Naruto did, with a slam on the door, leaving a shocked group of people behind. "Cake!" Nami yelled, catching the attention of everyone present, who were glad for the distraction. With Naruto. As soon as he made sure he wasn't seen, Naruto quickly rolled up his sleeve and revealed the Omnitrix on his wrist. He picked the species he wanted, and smacked the faceplate, and in a flash of green light, what stood in place of Naruto wasn't the one he picked but something new. The alien resembles a semi-armored velociraptor from the list of species of aliens Azimuth sent him on his 8th birthday. He has black balls on his feet and wears a helmet with a visor, leaving the other features of his head unknown. One can see that he has a blue face, green eyes, and black lips and stripes. He wears the Omnitrix on his chest. He has 5 blue stripes on his tail. The creature inspected himself and blinked. Not what I was going for, but it does have about the same ability as Chitrax. I think I'll call this one Rush. With that, he got into a ready stance and a visor covered his face. Sweet, Rush said. Then in a burst of impressive speed, he left the area to his destination in full sprint. One short run later, Naruto was in the forest of death in his human appearance, and what he saw shocked him. There laid in front of him were items addressed to him. 2 scrolls and a sword that was sheathed completely. The grip of the sword was decorated in blue and white stripes and the guard was designed as a 4-pointed star. He went to pick it up and felt the sword vibrate on his hand as if accepting his touch. He slung it over his shoulder and went to inspect the 2 scrolls. The first was a scroll on a certain type of taijutsu, the Goken. He could only guess where this had come from. Thanks, Lee Guy, he thought as he placed the scroll in his pocket. He looked at the other. It was a scroll for Kenjutsu beginners with a note written at the bottom. Happy birthday from Yugao, Lee and Guy. He was glad that at least some people remembered his birthday, but was sad when he knew that he'd have to leave them, and gladly pocketed the scroll in his other pocket. He got up and saw that the day was still bright, so he left to a scheduled part of the forest to start practice on his taijutsu skill till daybreak, when he knew he would leave this place. With Kushina, she had gotten a tongue lashing. Oh, how she treated her soon from her best friend. She wouldn't have believed it if it weren't true. Come to think of it, as she got home, she tried to remember the fun activities all 4 of them did together but could think up with nothing. She was even ashamed of herself when she realized that after 2, they stopped caring about celebrating Naruto's birthday with Nami's. She prided herself on being a good mother and an Uzumaki that follows the family code, but she was sure her grandfather would be ashamed with her actions. She got up from hers and Minato's bed with a new determination. From now on, I will do as much as I can to be there for my son, she thought as she left the room, going to prepare a big bowl of ramen for the entire family. With Minato being the Kage of a village and having a family meant one thing, either pick the village or the family. So don't blame him if he wanted to keep the village safe by having his children as the Jinchuruki of the Kyubi no Yoko. He knew he was alienating his son, but it had to be done for the greater good of the village, and his daughter was the child of the prophecy. Something him and Jiraiya knew of because of the details. Someday, you will take on a pupil. This student will become the harbinger of a great revolution in the world of the ninja. They will finally bring peace to the world, or utterly destroy it, so the result of their revolution will be one or the other, the great Toad Sage said to Jiraiya. Minato was sure that his daughter was the prophecy child since she had the power and the chakra and the lineage to back it up, and Naruto had nothing, just the yang of the Kyubi's chakra. He knew that in order for the prophecy to come true, they had to focus on his daughter, and Jiraiya knew that, so he believed himself to be justified. Lose 1,000 to save 1,000,000, he thought as he looked at his family picture. He frowned, trying to remember if he made the right decision with his son, but was interrupted when his door was slammed open and Kushina stormed in with a note on her hand and was surprised. When she slammed it on his desk, he looked at her wife, who had a distraught look on her face. Read, she said as she pointed to the letter in front of them. He picked it up and opened it. Dear Namikaze-sama, since the 4th Hokage in all his glory decided to expel me from the clan, I decided that it would be pointless to live in a village that doesn't want you. I always figured that Nami would be the one who both of you would love. I will be leaving the village to find a family that would not put me in the back for their own pleasure. I will show the world that what an old toad says should not be dictated as law. No matter what you try to do, I will not come back into a family that will sacrifice their family for the betterment of the village. Since I am a civilian and clanless, the Hokage will have to break a few laws to drag me back to the village. If you come for me, remember this, I will fight. I wonder, Namikaze-sama, will you put your own ex-son into the bingo book and send out hunter names? From Naruto, no name. Minato dropped the sheet of paper in shock at this. He was expecting his son to be angry and try to beg his way back into the family, but this was extreme. He looked to his wife, who was about to start crying, and snapped his fingers, signaling for his personal guards. Anbu, 4 ANBU guards immediately appeared in front of the Hokage on their knees. He looked at each of them and ordered, get me Hatake Kakashi. I want him in my office yesterday. Hi Hokage-sama, the ANBU captain said, and they left with a soundless shushin. Moments later, Kakashi appeared reading his orange novel, Ika Ika or Come Come Paradise. published by Jiraiya. He looked at his sensei and greeted casually. "Yo!" Minato sighed at his student's antics and handed him the letter. Kakashi looked confused at first but read it. As he read further and further, he was shocked at what was written. He looked at Minato, who was serious. "What do you need me to do?" he asked the Hokage in a businesslike manner. "Track his scent while these ANBU follow and bring him back alive. If you have any difficulties, call me," Minato said as he got up and walked to his distraught wife and looked back at them. "But I don't expect you to have any, since he practically is a civilian." With that, he left his office and his student ordered the ANBU guard to meet him at the gate in 10 minutes. With Naruto. Naruto was running in a pair of black pants with red stripes at the side of his hips trailing down to the feet, where he wore dark red sneakers. On the upper part of his body, he had on a black long-sleeve shirt and an orange short-sleeve jacket with a hood. Underneath the sleeve of his shirt on his wrist was the Omnitrix, and on his back was an orange backpack with a sword and the 2 scrolls he got as a birthday gift from his only friends in the village. Naruto was running as fast as he looked back to see no one gaining on him. He was about to enter the border of Nami no Kuni to head for the port when he heard a voice. "Namikaze Naruto, you are hereby ordered to stop what you're doing and head home." "Shit!" Naruto looked to where the voice was spoken and saw an ANBU agent standing in front of him, preventing him from moving further. He looked around and noticed the appearance of 3 other ANBU and cursed his luck before drawing back the sleeve on his left arm, revealing an active Omnitrix. "Let's see what you say when I freeze you up," he declared as he pressed the dial and smashed the faceplate after selecting the alien he wanted, and in a flash of green light, what they were seeing wasn't Naruto. Instead, they saw a humanoid, moth-like creature whose wings and antennae can folded up into a hooded robe, giving him the appearance of a phantom. "Siberian!" the creature announced in a cold voice. The ANBU were surprised at this development, giving Naruto the opening to cloak himself before inhaling and exhaling cold air in front of the ANBU captain, and it was only due to his active Sharingan eye that he was able to substitute with the nearest log on time, freezing it in his place. "Don't let that fog hit you," the captain ordered, and they all got into place looking for the blue insect-like creature who was still in his cloak mode. "If that won't work," he aimed for the dial on his chest plate. "How about a little speed?" He then smacked the dial on his chest, and in a flash of green, he was not the alien he picked Rambai. He asked in confusion, seeing the diamond on his skin. He was a silicon-based life form. His body is composed of durable green crystals. He sports 4 green crystal shards on his back and has a sharp head. His outfit consisted of the color scheme, orange and black. He had on black sneakers and with a belt on his hip revealing the Omnitrix symbol. For the top, wore a sleeveless V-neck shirt that had an orange stripe on the middle and black stripe on the 2 sides. Naruto looked at his hand as its shape shifted nice. He then aimed at the ANBU and shot from the already downloaded knowledge based on his skills. Green diamonds shot at the ANBU in his sight, firing fast enough to hit the off-guard ANBU. Naruto then aimed at the others and was firing timed shots, but he knew one was missing, so he wasn't surprised when one tried to attack him from behind, so he used his arm, which shape-shifted into a blade, to block the oncoming sword strike and grabbed the sword before encasing it, and its wielder in a large diamond. "That will hold you for some time," Naruto said as he inspected his handiwork, but he didn't notice the ANBU weaving hand signs for the Grand Fireball Jutsu behind him. "Katon! Gokaki no Jutsu, Fire Style, Fireball Jutsu." Naruto heard the attack and formed a shield with his hands, blocking the incoming attack, sweating while doing it. "That's some heat. But I can make hotter," Naruto said before he smacked the dial on his waist, and in a blinding green light, a new voice was heard. "Hot spot." Gone was the diamond alien that they were fighting, and in its place was something different. Hot Spot is a magma-based creature whose body is composed of a bright inner magma body covered by a dark red or brown rocks. As a fire-based entity, his body radiates high amounts of heat that was being felt by the people in the area. His feet have slight oval-like design with only 2 toes and 1 back toe. "I thought that he was supposed to be weak," an ANBU said to his other 2 remaining comrades, but was interrupted when all 4 were surrounded by a ring of fire. Naruto flew out and placed both arms on the ground, igniting the heat more, increasing the height and temperature of the heat, completely suffocating every ANBU in the ring. As Naruto heard the last ANBU drop, he put out the fire and powered down, looking at his downed opponents, and the one encased in the diamond. Didn't think he'd actually go through with sending ANBU after me," he said, and as he was about to continue his journey, A voice froze him in his tracks. That's because you're my son and I'll do anything to get you home safely. As Naruto turned back and he saw Minato Namikaze in full Hokage battle robes with his cloak and kunai ready. Beside him was Hatake Kakashi reading the porn novel in his hand. Naruto just glared. What do you want? He asked. Minato sighed. Naruto, I'm sorry for the way I treated you, but this has to stop, he said. You're sorry? Naruto calmly asked. You're sorry? He shouted angry at what was said, then he calmed down and took deep breaths. You had 9 years to treat me right. 9 years to get your act straight. 9 years! And you think you can redeem your words by saying you're sorry? He pressed the dial in his Omnitrix, and the playlist came up, and before Kakashi tried to stop him, Naruto had selected the alien he wanted, smashed the faceplate, and in a flash of green light, he picked his most favorite alien, Chitrax. He shouted, and what Minato and Kakashi saw was a cat feline-like creature with a black suit-like color scheme. His hands, legs, part of his head and chest are colored blue. He has spikes on his hands and legs. He also has a black Wolverine mask-like fins around his green eyes. He has a triangle-shaped nose, and a thunderbolt-like design down his chest. He had the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. What's this one supposed to do? Kakashi asked with an eyebrow raised. Naruto raised an unexisting eyebrow and smirked. You think you're standing beside the fastest man in the nations? He then took the sprinting stance. Think again. And in a burst of speed he was in front of Kakashi, and gave him a punch, sending the masked Jounin flying away. Naruto looked beside him to see a shocked Minato recovering quickly, gripping his kunai. I'm sorry I have to do this, Naruto, but with powers like that, there's no way I'm letting you leave the village, Minato said. So he threw his kunai at his transformed son, who scowled at the act. Time slowed down as he turned around, giving the reappearing Minato a heavy punch to the guts, surprising the Hokage at how fast his son had gotten before he saw his son grab his special kunai and crushed it to dust. Time resumed at its normal speed, and Minato was on the floor holding his hurt stomach with a wince as he got up on one knee, reaching into his pocket to get another kunai, but before he could do that, his eyes rolled to the back of his head, falling face first on the ground. Naruto was standing behind his so-called father with his hand in the chopping motion before he picked up the body and dropped it on the pile of knocked-out ANBU bodies in a burst of speed. He dashed to Kakashi's body and did the same thing before stepping back, tapping the dial on his chest. Turning to Siberia, he opened up his wings as he inhaled cold air before blowing it all over the pile of bodies and the still crystallized ANBU, creating an ice dome almost hard to break before he turned back into Chitrax and spat at the dome in disgust. Tried to get out of that. He then turned around and left the area, arriving at the shipping port of Wave Country. He inhaled and exhaled, sending the coordinates to a specific group of family Azimuth recommended to his head before speaking out in expiration. This is gonna be a long run, and with a burst of speed, he dashed over the water, heading out of the elemental nations with a smile on his face, thinking of how it was worth it all. As Chitrax, Naruto was running across the continent with one destination in mind as per recommendations, Bellwood, and as he got there, it was midday and apparently something interesting was happening in the news from what he saw on the display TVs. On other news, police still haven't made leeway at the hostage situation in Bellwood National Bank. It appears that the bands are armed to their teeth, as any wrong move would force drastic measures to be taken on their prisoners, the reporter announced. Naruto got a look at what the bank looked like. He knew it would be wrong to leave the people to their devices, so he dashed to an alley nearby, and in a flash of green light, he revealed his normal form coming out from it. He looked to the right and saw a passerby and asked kindly, "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm new here and I was wondering if you could point me to the nearest bank," Naruto said, and the lady smiled at how this young boy was polite and couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you a little young to be walking all alone in a bank?" Naruto scratched his head in embracement. "My parents and I were going for a tour of the town, and I happened to separate from them a few minutes ago, but before the separation, we were heading to the bank as the next stop," Naruto lied casually. The female scowled. "What type of parents leave their child unattended for?" she muttered. "Apparently the parents that tend to be easily distracted," Naruto replied. The woman smiled and pointed just around the corner 2 blocks away, she said. Naruto waved his thanks but had a pressed face. "Gotta go." He then rushed to the nearest bathroom, running as if he needed to pee, but that was just a cover for his real plan. He had used the Omnitrix a lot today, so this had to be short and quick, or it would just deactivate on its own. Should have just accessed the master control, Naruto muttered, and as he pressed the dials on the watch, A circular two-dimensional hologram with a playlist of aliens appeared once the faceplate was moved. Naruto slid the images to the side and picked the alien he wanted and slammed it down. In a flash of green light, an annoyed Naruto spoke to the dial on his chest in a wrestler-like tone. Let me tell you something, Omnitrix. Next time you choose the alien Wrath wants, or Wrath will destroy you. Yes, Naruto wasn't the speedy alien he wanted. No, he was instead a 9 feet tall orange and white bipedal tiger with one claw coming out of each wrist and no tail. He is also muscular, and has green eyes. Wrath then pressed the dial on his chest, and in the same green light, gone was Wrath, and in its place, Chitrax, who nodded in appreciation. Much better, he said, and in a burst of speed, he left the washroom he was in and hurried to the bank, with the police. Any confirmation on that backup, Private? Police Officer 1 asked. None at the moment, Chief. We're on our. The private was interrupted when the wind blew and looked around to find the cause. What in God's name was that? The chief asked. I don't know, Chief. The private said as they held their positions once again. In the bank, scattered in a group around the center of the room, were civilians and bankers of every kind. Today was just a normal day for these citizens until about a dozen armed robbers came to steal their money. Right now, they're demanding for ransom from the police, and as what looked like the leader of the thugs was about to speak, he suddenly disappeared and appeared in front of the chief of police. Armless and tied up ready for capture, the leader looked around and saw he was outside the bank. What just happened? He asked, but was hit with a taser before he could continue talking. That's one down, the chief said. What do you think happened? An officer asked. Back up, the chief replied as he saw the other 8 bandits packed up and ready for court. Meanwhile in the bank, the last thug was looking around wildly before he spotted a blonde, green-eyed female discreetly trying to leave while he was distracted. The thug made his way to her and pulled her hair, pointing the gun at her face. You see this? The thug asked. Seemingly nobody, unless you want this blonde's blood on your hands. You have until the count of 3 to come out and surrender. He looked around and saw nobody as he was still holding the female. Then he started 1, 2, 2 1/2, 2 3/4, 3. But as he pulled the trigger, he felt nothing on his hand and looked to see the scared blonde and an empty hand. Then he asked the blonde what happened. I did, replied a voice, and they all turned to see a cat-like humanoid creature holding the gun before he crushed it into dust. What the hell are you, freak? The thug asked as he backed away, dropping the blonde in fear. Your worst nightmare, Naruto said before appearing in front of the thug. I hate it when guys like you threaten beautiful ladies like her. He then punched the thug, knocking him out before using his belt to tie him up, leaving him for the police. Naruto walked to the blonde and undid her gags. What's your name, miss? He asked. Sandra. The female replied, feeling safe around him. Then all of a sudden, there was a sound of slow beeping and they looked to his chest, seeing the dial on his chest flash red. He had to act now in one last act of heroism. Care to direct me to your house as I take you there? I'm sure your family must be worried. Before Sandra had the decency to answer, she was picked up bridal style. Much to her shock, then the world became a blur to her. Flashback end. Turns out he saved Sandra Tennyson, who gladly took care of him as he passed out after the timer on the Omnitrix ran out because of overexhaustion. He met her husband, and when they asked about his why he was there and not with parents, he told them the modern version of his life because he felt like he could trust them. When they heard the gist of it, they were appalled at how a parent would treat their child because of something he didn't have. If it was them, they would treat all children fairly. It was then that a decision was made concerning Naruto. Since he was disowned, they would raise them as their own if he agreed to it, something he accepted graciously. Since then, he met the other member of the family, his new little brother, Ben, who was excited to have an older brother. He explained about his watch to his unofficial adoptive parents because his mother was adamant about it. Since then, his life was better and a lot more comfortable in a place where he would like to call home. That was until 2 years later when he got into college on scholarship, something his adoptive parents were proud of and sad that he had to go, but he did promise that he'll be back and they held on to it. He hated to see Ben cry, so he promised something to his brother, and with that, he left. That was 2 years ago, making 4 years in total. Now he was back after completing a 2-year program in advanced mechanics and a few electives, and he was happy he would see his family. He got down from the bus and thanked the bus driver before he picked up his bike from the front of the bus and got on it and rode to his house. It was good to be home. In Bellwood High, ring. Students were running home from school at the sound of the bell signaling the start of summer vacation, but that wasn't the immediate plan for 2 bullies in the school. They decided to torment someone before they got home, and they cornered a defenseless boy in the corner. Looky here, Cash, little hotshot here decided that he could run home without saying goodbye to his two best friends. The taller one looked to his partner, Cash, who smirked. Let's show him how much we'll miss him, JT, Cash said to his partner JT with his fist meeting his hands as they both crept to the defenseless boy. Hey, leave him alone! Shouted a voice from behind them, and they turned around to see the resident loser. Ben Tennyson, who unknown to them was acting the part of the loser due to an advice his big brother gave him years ago. If you have the skills, don't hesitate to show them, but mess with your enemies first. Deceive them till the point they believe you to be nothing, then strike with a vengeance when ready, his brother said to him during one of his teachings. Ben Tennyson was a 10-year-old boy with brown hair and green eyes. He wore a white round-neck t-shirt shirt that had a thick black vertical stripe in the middle of the shirt starting from its neck to the waist. He had on a pair of green cameo baggy trousers and a pair of white and black striped sneakers. He was looking at the bullies with a look of anger, ready to trash them as he took his fighting stance. The one of the Goken. Look, Cash, Bruce Lee Jr. thinks he can beat us. JT laughed at his taunt. Why don't we have some fun with him, and show him not to mess with his betters? Cash asked as they both stalked Ben, forgetting about the boy they were tormenting. Ben smirked as they both charged him. Moments later, hey! Get us down! JT yelled from a tree to Ben, who was laughing at the bully that was hanging on his underwear with his partner. Ben just walked over to the boy who they were bullying and helped him up. The kid thanked him for his help. You're welcome, Ben said. How did you learn how to move like that? The boy asked. I taught him. A voice spoke from behind them, making Ben scratch his head in fear at who he knew was behind him, until he felt a hand on his head, and what was said after made him blush in embracement. But you did good, lil bro. Ben looked up and saw his big brother smiling at him with his eyes closed. He scratched his cheek and waved off his brother's hand from him. Stop that. You're embarrassing me, he said to his brother, who shrugged. That's what big brothers are for, Naruto said, and reached into his back, pulling out a black and green skateboard, handing it to Ben, who looked excited at his board. Wow, awesome! Ben exclaimed and followed his brother to his bike, and as he got on, they both rode home, completely ignoring the bullies' cries for help with smiles on their face. Later, as they reached home, Ben excitedly got off his board, running to greet his parents and tell them the good news. Mom, Dad, you won't believe who just picked me up from school, he shouted as he entered the living room, seeing his mother there, who turned and smiled at him. Your big brother? She asked, and seeing Ben's surprised look, she laughed. I was the one that sent him there to pick you up. If not, your grandpa would. Grandpa's here? I completely forgot about the summer vacation, Ben said. Then he rushed to his room. Gotta go pack up. Don't worry, Tyke, Naruto already did that for you. Your things are in the RV, a voice said, and Ben turned around to see a fairly overweight man in his late 60s with a keen sense for adventure in the tone of his voice. His grandpa wore a white shirt, covered by a red button-up shirt with a floral design. He has gray hair and blue pants as well as black shoes. Grandpa! Ben greeted and gave his grandfather a hug, which he returned before he ran outside to the RV. This is gonna be so awesome, Ben said. Naruto sighed at his brother's cheerfulness and walked down from their room with a smile, seeing his grandfather, Max, who smiled at him. Ready to go? Max asked. Naruto nodded, but before he left, his mother called out, Are you going to tell him? She asked. Naruto scratched his chin and thought of how this was going to happen, if it was going to happen. He looked back at his Omnitrix on his wrist and the expectant look on his grandfather's and mother's face, and sighed. I'll tell him tonight, he said, creating smiles on both grown-ups' faces. Good choice, his mother said, and his grandpa agreed with her. Well, we should get going, Max said. Don't want to burn daylight. He walked out of the house and Naruto gave his mother a hug before following him. Outside, Grandpa, what's taking so long? I already have second thoughts on coming along for this vacation because I can't spend another minute with this dweeb here, a female voice shouted as she walked out of the RV with an annoyed scowl on her face. This female had short red hair held by a blue hair clip and green eyes. She wore a blue shirt with a cat logo on her chest and white capris. She wears a blue hair clip in her bangs. The sighed in relief as she saw her grandfather finally. What took you? She never got to finish as she saw what she thought was the most handsome male in her life. Is something wrong? Max asked as he looked at Gwen, who was looking like a love-struck teen at seeing Naruto behind him. Here he had to suppress a smirk and tap Naruto's shoulder, who looked at his grandfather in confusion. Hey, kid, looks like you got a crush, he said to Naruto, who was confused and looked to where his grandfather was pointing and had to suppress a groan at the love-struck girl in front of him. Naruto had foregone his red hood and put on a dark blue round-neck shirt under an orange long-sleeve jacket that had the collars pointing upwards. He also wore brown cameo trousers and still had the same pair of sneakers on with his headphones on his neck connected to an iPod in his pocket. He smiled and walked to the girl in front of him. "Hi, I'm Naruto, Ben's adoptive big brother. What's your name?" he politely asked. "Gwen. My name is Gwendolyn. My friends call me Gwen," she quickly corrected, embarrassed at the mistake she made in front of him. Naruto just smiled at how cute that was. "Can I call you Gwen?" Naruto asked. "You can call me anything you want." Gwen sighed in a dreamlike trance but quickly shook her head. Sure you can. "I think I'm gonna enjoy being friends with you," Naruto said before he walked to the RV and waited patiently for her to enter before he did. Gwen blushed at the gesture and entered the van, thanking Naruto before rushing inside quickly. Naruto smiled and entered the RV before shutting the door, and minutes later, the RV left the Tennyson Manor 8 p.m. campsite. The RV was parked in the woods as the Tree Kids were preparing, waiting for what their grandpa had to offer for dinner. Max came out with a bowl of what looked like pasta, but once he got closer, what they saw disgusted them. "What the heck is that?" Naruto asked, disgusted at the dish in front of him. "Marinated mealworms," Max said. "Hard to find them fresh in the States. They're considered a delicacy in some countries, and completely grotesque in others," Gwen said, disgusted at the amount of worms in front of her but glad to be sitting beside Naruto. "If these don't sound good, I've got some smoked sheep dung in the fridge," Max said. "Ugh," Ben was disgusted from the other side of the table. "Can't we have a burger or something?" he asked his grandpa, and Gwen agreed with him but were disappointed when he disagreed. "Nonsense, this summer's gonna be an adventure for your taste buds," Max said. "I'll grab the tongue." With that, he left to the RV. Ben, Gwen and Naruto huddled together, coming up with a plan. "I've got 3 Rice Krispie bars in my bag. What about you guys?" Naruto asked. "Some rice cakes," Gwen said. "Half-eaten bag of corn chips," Ben finished and looked to his brother. "Think it can last?" Naruto asked, and they all gave a depressed sigh at this. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of space, a smaller transport ship was moving as fast as it could, avoiding the beams sent its way by a larger battleship, but one beam hit the ship, causing a minor malfunction. In the battleship, droids were on the control panel firing the beam at the ship that was holding their current object of interest, the prototype Omnitrix. As the beam hit, a droid looked into the darkness of the ship where their master was residing. Seeing a pair of red eyes in the shadows, it spoke to its master. "Their propulsion systems have been hit. Prepare to board," their master said in a raspy voice. "I want the Omnitrix now." Suddenly, they were hit by a beam from the ship below them. Angered, their master ordered a powerful blast sent to the transport ship's way, destroying 3/4 of it. You could see a small sparkle as a pod detached from the ship, heading to its current destination, Earth. On Earth, Ben was on his big brother's computer playing video games while Gwen was browsing. Naruto was nowhere to be seen at the moment. Max came out asking a question after looking at his grandkids. "Who wants to roast marshmallows?" "Can't, busy," they both replied, and Max sighed and walked inside, a bit dejected. Ben paused his game. "I need to go for a walk," and he closed Naruto's PC, rushing into the woods while Gwen shook her head. With Ben was walking in the forest after taking a leak, sighing at how boring he thought that this summer was going to be. "This is starting to turn out to be the worst vacation ever," he said, walking with his hands in his pockets until he noticed a spark in the sky. "Whoa, a shooting star!" he exclaimed in awe, until that awe turned to fright as the star changed its direction, heading for him. He gasped in surprise before diving out of the way as the shooting star made contact with the earth, causing a minor explosion. As the explosion died down and Ben recovered, he looked to see a crater and walked to it. Seeing that it wasn't deep, he spied inside it and saw something glowing red-hot, steaming from the intense heat. "Looks like a satellite or something," he said as he saw a spherical object in the crater. He jumped in and the spherical object opened up, revealing something inside. The object looked like a very big wristwatch, primarily black and gray in color, with a gray, or black, dial in the middle, like a watch face, which has a green hourglass shape on it. "What's a watch doing in outer space?" Ben asked as he used his left hand to reach for it, that is, until it opened up and latched on his wrist. Curious, Ben looked at the watch that latched on his wrist, though he was surprised at first, but he decided that being surprised doesn't get this thing off, so he inspected the watch and saw 2 green dials on each side. He pressed them together, and then the faceplate rose up and the arrows facing each other shifted, revealing an image of a humanoid thing with flaming head. He pushed the image down, and in a flash of green light, he was different. He looked at his hands. I'm on fire. But I don't feel anything, he said, and noticed his voice was raspy and deeper. Whoa. My voice changed. He then scratched his chin and thought, I wonder. He charged up a fireball and aimed at a branch at the tree in front of him. He fired a perfect shot and smirked, sweet. And in a moment of stupidity, Ben started to launch fireballs ranging from small to medium all over the forest, unintentionally creating a forest fire. Ben noticed this a minute later. Oh, he said, worried that the fire will expand reaching the campsite, so he tried to put it out the old-fashioned way without water. Campsite. While Ben was having his own issues, Gwen was on her computer using her Wi-Fi to check for something. She didn't notice the figure creeping up behind her until he spoke from behind her. How to impress guys, the figure said in humor, and was amused at her reaction. You don't need to go to the net to find out how to impress me. Gwen blushed and closed her PC, turning around to face Naruto, who had that certain mirth in his eyes. Something that made her blush even further. It wasn't for you, she said, and she quickly got up, picking her computer, rushing into the RV. That was until Naruto, who was looking for his brother, noticed something. Who's dumb enough to start a forest fire? He asked. Then not only did his eyes widen in realization, Gwen's did, and they replied at the same time. Ben, I'll get the fire extinguisher, Naruto said, and Gwen hurried to drop her PC and followed Naruto as he went to search for Ben in the woods. Burning forest. Ben was a nervous wreck when he couldn't put out the fire. His brother would be so disappointed in him when he finds out about this, but hearing footsteps behind him, he might as well take the punishment now. As he turned around, Gwen screamed in fright at the falling being before her, whereas Naruto stood firm and brave, standing in front of Gwen, taking the Goken stance with a serious expression on his face. What are you? He calmly asked, unaware of what the girl behind him was thinking. He's so brave, protecting me from that flaming monster, Gwen thought, admiration overriding her fear, and that admiration was turning into something deeper. I wish I could be as brave as him. Guys, calm down. It's me, Ben, the creature said, and before it knew it, he was sent flying backwards from a roundhouse kick Naruto sent to his front, and if you saw the look on Naruto's face, even the scariest of monsters would be intimidated. It's one thing for you to start a forest fire that was intended to harm others, Naruto said in a scary tone. Then out of nowhere, he brought out a pair of silver nunchaku and started spinning them in an impressive show of skill before ending it with a slam on the ground. It's another to go impersonating my little brother. That is something that I cannot take lightly, Naruto said, then moved to attack the creature, unaware of the effect it was having on a certain redhead. The creature had to think fast because he knew that Naruto could beat him if he wanted. Then he had an idea that froze Naruto in his tracks. Those who break the rules are trash, but those that abandon their comrades are worse. You told me that before you started to train me in martial arts, and you gave me another advice: if you have the skills, don't hesitate to show them, but mess with your enemies first. Deceive them till the point they believe you to be nothing, then strike with a vengeance when ready. What makes you think I'm not following it now, Ben? Naruto asked, uncertain what happened. Ben went into a tale of what happened minutes prior to his brother and cousin. Gwen was a bit surprised that this happened and that his brother taught him martial arts while Naruto was in thought. Why don't we get rid of this fire with a counter fire first before we come up with any decision? Naruto suggested, and motioned for Ben to do his work, that he did graciously like an expert already. Naruto was impressed at what he did before he heard beeping and saw the symbol on Ben's chest flash red before it died down, and in a flash, Ben was back to normal. That's some funky watch, Naruto said as he inspected the Omnitrix on Ben's hand, while Gwen agreed with him. I'm curious as to how many aliens you could turn into, Gwen mused out, interested, but heard running and turned behind them to see their grandfather running towards them. Will someone please explain to me what happened here? Max asked after panting a bit, and Naruto decided to give him the short version of the story. Outskirts of space. What do you mean it's not there? An eerie voice asked in the battleship from before. Sensors indicate that a probe was sent to the planet below us just before the ship was evacuated, the droid said to its dismantled master in the tube that was helping him recover from the recent battle. The master looked at two bigger and more battle-focused droids. One of you go, the other followed. 10 minutes later, the master said, and the droids obeyed the order, and the first one left the ship. Its destination: secure the Omnitrix. Back on Earth. Looks like it's a playlist of 10 different aliens, each with its own unique abilities, Gwen summarized after inspecting the watch. I think the best option is to train in each of these forms so that you can get the hang of each transformation, know their strengths and weaknesses so that if you transform into one you don't want, you can use the current alien to ensure victory, Naruto said, and Max agreed. And I know which alien to pick, Ben said, and without thinking, he pressed the dial on the watch, and as the faceplate rose up, he slammed it down, and in a flash of green light, gone was Ben, and in his place was a huge, the size of a car, orange dog with no eyes, ears, or tail. His teeth are very defined and stick out of his mouth. Roar! Ben said, confused that he lost his ability to speak. Gwen was in front of his dog form and waved her arms in its face, and deduced out the obvious, looks like it has no eyes. Naruto picked a stick ready to test its other reflexes and was impressed at its ability to sense the attack coming, but it has other senses. Ben was excited and decided to test run this alien by moving deeper into the forest, ignoring protests sent his way. He was so distracted. He didn't notice the UFO above him until he heard the beeping and sensed a laser being shot his way. He jumped to another 3 hanging off it, looking for what caused the damage, and he saw a strange-looking robot shaped like a flying saucer with hands and legs looking down at him before it fired. Ben was evading all its shots and hid from the robot's sight as it was searching for where Ben might be, but it was taken by surprise when Ben jumped at him and ripped off its head, and before Ben could go further, the Omnitrix symbol on his shoulder was beeping red, so he jumped off the robot as it was heading for a collision course to a wall. Ben was back to normal as he landed, and he inspected the explosion, giving it a 10 out of 10. That was until he heard beeping and saw another robot floating above him. Oh, he said that was until its head was kicked off by his big brother, who landed and whacked his head. Don't do that next time, Naruto yelled at Ben. Ouch. I'm sorry, alright, I won't run off like that, Ben said, rubbing his hurt head. Later. We shouldn't fool around with that thing until we know what it is. Max said what you did was reckless, Ben. Sorry, Grandpa, a humble Ben said. About the watch, I think there's a function in it that lets you stay transformed into the aliens you pick, Naruto mused. That would be so cool, then I wouldn't have to worry about the time out when saving lives, Ben exclaimed, much to the annoyance of Gwen. We haven't decided what to do with it yet apart from getting familiar with the alien's doofus, so don't get your hopes up, Gwen said. Radio, Mayday, Mayday, somebody help us. I think we're being attacked by some sort of robot. Looks like the decision on whether we want to help people changed just now, Naruto said, and they left the RV to see help the civilians. Ben reached the danger zone and pressed the dial on the Omnitrix, selecting the alien he wanted. He smacked the faceplate down, and in a flash of green light, Diamond Head was in his place. They then saw the robot attacking out get its attention. You guys get the campers to safety, Ben said, and they agreed, not before Naruto wished his brother good luck. As they left, Ben rushed head first as Diamond Head to the robot, and punched it, making it stumble a bit. The battle droid saw Ben and scanned his whole person, spotting the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Then it fired a beam from his hand at him, sending Ben flying back a bit. Ben got up from the wreckage by slicing his way out, and he looked at his hand. Cool, he said. Then he rushed at the robot, trying to give it a punch, but it jumped, avoiding the blow, attempting to land on Ben. But Ben saw this coming, and he back-flipped out of the way. Ben then got into his Goken stance, and gave the droid a come-hither motion, forcing it to shoot a beam at him. Ben ducked the beam, redirecting it to a tree, causing it to fall directly on an unsuspecting Gwen. If Naruto wasn't there to break the 3 in half with a kick. Naruto looked at Gwen, who was shocked, and cupped her cheek. Are you okay? He asked her. Gwen just nodded in response before Naruto took her to a safer place, giving Ben the go-ahead. Ben saw this and ducked a claw swipe from the droid before grabbing its hand and morphing his hand into a sword and slicing it off. The droid stumbled back a bit and looked at its destroyed hand before looking back at Ben, who was looking at it with a smirk. It fired a more powerful beam at Ben, who placed his arms in front of him, catching the attack, and redirected the reflecting beam back to it, destroying it completely. All right, Gwen cheered amongst the audience. Way to go, Diamond Head. Max cheered. Ben looked at his adoring audience with a smug look and looked at his nails. I think my work here is done, he said before he left the area. In the outskirts of space. You may go and complete this mission, the master said to the second battle droid from his tube. The droid then walked to the hatch of the ship and launched itself to Earth, with the Tennysons. The Omnitrix was in timeout mode and the Tennysons were packing up for the night. Max looked at Naruto, who saw his gaze and nodded with a sigh. He walked to his little brother and cousin, who were setting up their sleeping bags. Ben, there's something I need to tell you, and I guess now is as good a time as any. He looked at a curious Gwen. And I might as well tell you too, Gwen. What about Grandpa? Ben asked. He already knows, Naruto said, then pulled the sleeve on his hand, revealing his watch to Ben and Gwen. That's just a watch, Naruto, you told me, Ben said. Gwen, on the other hand, was starting to see similarities between the watch and Ben's Omnitrix. It's not a watch, Ben, it's a crash. They looked and saw another battle droid a few feet from them. Crap, watch is timed out, I can't do anything, Ben said in panic, and Naruto had a serious face walking up to the droid. You don't have to, he said to his brother, and before Ben could protest, Naruto brought his wrist to his chest, pressing the dial on his Omnitrix, forcing the faceplate to shift, creating a hologram of the different set of aliens in his collection. Naruto selected the one he wanted and slammed the faceplate down in a similar fashion Ben did earlier, and a green light surrounded the area. As it was done, they heard a funny voice that sounded a bit like a wrestler. Let me tell you something, you stupid robot. It started. You think you and your buddy can come here and mess with Wrath's family time? He snarled and smacked his left fist into his right palm. No one messes with the Wrath. Is that your brother? Gwen asked, pointing to what they were seeing. Ben just nodded, shocked to do anything for what he just saw, threw his world for a loop. Okay, well, not really, but this is a serious situation. Standing in front of them was a hulking 9-foot figure. It was an orange and white bipedal tiger with one claw coming out of each wrist, and no tail. He is also muscular, and has green eyes that were glowing with rage. Roar! Wrath snarled and rushed to the droid, catching its arm that was going in for the swipe before clawing out said arm. Wrath looked at the arm, then the droid, and smirked, then charged again, using the machine's arm to hit the robot repeatedly. Stop hitting yourself, Wrath said each time he was smashing the droid with his arm, destroying it pretty easily. Wow, your brother really knows how to handle himself, Gwen said, shocked at the brutality. Don't worry about him. It's this form's character trait, Max explained. It seems he's prone to anger, and solves it the only way it knows how. Its fists? Ben asked, but then noticed something and asked his grandpa, how do you know that? I thought you knew nothing about the watch. I helped your brother train, that was all he said to get Ben calming down. Looks like he's done, Gwen mused, and they saw that as Wrath ripped the head off the droid before crushing it, and jumping of it as it fell to the ground. Wrath roared in victory before turning to his family and pressing the dial on his chest, deactivating the Omnitrix, revealing Naruto, who was scratching the back of his head at his brother's look that was demanding for answers. Yup, this was going to be a great summer indeed, as Naruto explained to Ben about how he got his watch and what the watch was. At first Ben was excited, then he was upset that Naruto kept this from him, so Naruto cheered him up by helping him figure out how to work his Omnitrix. But not as well as he himself, because that would be an unfair advantage, and Ben needs the experience to be able to master it as good as him. He also found out that Gwen was smart for her age, almost as smart as he is, so he was able to talk about advanced mechanics with him, and when he spoke about a plasma rifle he built, she was thrilled and practically demanded to show her. It was a weapon that fires highly concentrated lasers, and she tested it on a tree that blew up completely. When he went into the inner mechanics for the gun, she was smitten even more and wanted to go out with him, but since she was 10, she was too young, so they settled to be just friends. Meanwhile, Ben was on his way to mastering his version of Hot Spot that he decided to name Heat Blast, and he was making fine progress for someone who recently got the device, but he wasn't able to complete the training as the radio signal picked up a police transmission complaining of a burning house not far from where they currently were, so they got in the RV and left the area to help the police. In the burning house, the house inside was burning with an intense heat. 2 civilians were trapped underneath a burning house. The roof was about to fall on them, but it was caught by a heroic Ben that arrived on time as Heat Blast looking down on his rescue, who were looking at him with awe. Who are you? The boy asked, being protected by his mother, seeing Heat Blast hold on the piles of wood that was about to fall on them. Don't worry, I'm here to help, Ben said. Then he scorched the wood he was holding before sucking the fire around them, creating a path for them to follow once a door was seen. As Ben mentioned the okay, the kid rushed to the door and reached the stairway leading down and out of the house, but as they were about to move further, it collapsed, freezing them in tracks. Ben looked around and spotted a window this way, he said, and they were escorted to the window, where Ben created a vortex of fire surrounding them, safely transporting them and himself out of the building to safety. I'm sure you all want to thank me, but really it's all in a day's work, for Ben spoke to the odd crowd in front of him, that is, until he saw something that caught his attention. No way. A gold sumo slammer card. He exclaimed in awe at the golden cards. He saw the boy he saved earlier, and immediately went to his side. Where did you get it? He asked. I found it in a box of sumo slammer cereals, the kid said to the fire monster beside him, confused as to why it would want one of these. Yo, heat blast! Stop messing around, Naruto said as the rust bucket pulled up with Max and Gwen in tow. That was a distraction. The robbers are on the run. Ben got up on it, he said, and with arms aimed on the ground, he took flight and followed the RV as it was on the move, leaving a confused group of civilians behind. Later, they were trailing behind the robber's car with Ben flying above and the RV directly below him and behind the other car. Ben then flew over to the other car and landed on the roof of it with a thud, startling the drivers in it. What the hell was that? Robber 1 asked his partner, who looked outside to see a rust bucket chasing them. I don't know, man, but there's an RV chasing us, Robber 2 said to one. His partner just sped on, trying to lose the van behind them, unaware of the fire being above them, that is, until the roof of the car was ripped open and Robber 2 was dragged off his seat, causing his partner to forcibly stop the car, sending Ben flying at the unexpected stop, crashing hard to the fence in front of him with Robber 2 on his hand. Ouch! Now that was not what I was going for, Ben said as he got out of the rubble, holding the knocked-out robber on his hand before setting him down. He heard a click and saw the driver out of the car holding an AK-47 aiming at his face. You gotta be pretty stupid to think that'll stop me, Ben said, and he aimed a small fire at the gun that melted it, forcing the robber to drop it on the ground because of the heat. Now I'm gonna have to ask you to get on your knees with your arms behind your back. And the robber, seeing no other alternative, just followed the order, but then as he got on his knees, he heard a beeping noise over some police sirens and saw a red flash. Hey, you're just a kid, the robber said as he saw a de-transformed Ben behind him, seemingly ignoring the fact that the Omnitrix disappeared. Ben got into the Goken fighting stance. And I can still whoop your butt, he said to the robber, who growled, and as he was about to get up and attack the kid, he heard cars pulling over and felt Taz before he was knocked out cold. Secure the other one, tie them up and take them to the cars, the chief police said, and looked at Ben, who sighed in relief. It's safe to go home, kid, by the way. Love the way you held your own on a superior opponent. Thanks, Ben said, and with that he went to the corner of the street to enter the RV with his family waiting for him, telling Max to stop at Megamart to get some cereal in there. Meanwhile, in an apartment block, click, the door was opened and a person walked inside the apartment. Pisses that the owner of this apartment hadn't paid his dues. That's been over 6 months. As he walked in, the apartment looked creepy, filled with animals of different kind, all in a protective glass. Phew, smells like a zoo in here, the man said as he continued to walk to the person he was looking for. That was until he walked into an empty cage that caught his attention. He was examining it until a frog came out of the log. That startled him a bit. As this was going, he didn't notice the shadow that was creeping up behind him until the owner spoke. How did you get in? The owner demanded, scaring the manager into a mini heart attack. Pasky, the manager said, fixing his tie. I am still your landlord, remember? Maybe not, since your rent is 6 months past due, he ended. All my funds go into my research, the scientist said. Now get out, you're disturbing me, he yelled, pointing to the door. Looks like you were disturbed long before I got here, the landlord said. Listen, Doc, you and your furry friends are out on the street unless you pony up the green. He held out his hand, hoping that Animo, the resident, will pay for it. Pony up? Interesting choice of phrases. Animo said, picking up a frog from its habitat. You must be an animal lover, then you're going to love this. He dropped the frog on the floor and went to pick up a helmet with 2 horns on it, something that caused laughter from his uninvited guests. What's that? You a member of the Moose Lodge or something? The landlord said. This is my transmodulator, Animo explained, pointing to the device that was strapped on his chest. Phase 1. It creates and accelerates mutations at the genetic level, he smugly stated, and turned the dial on his chest. Observe. The device charged up and shot a red beam from each horn, aiming for the frog that was in the range of its attack. In a flash of red light, the frog grew, nearly reaching the roof of the room. He looked bigger and had 2 sets of eyes, one directly above the other, and a pair of horns on its head. The frog swallowed the landlord in a gulp, and Animo couldn't resist. I'm sorry, I can't hear you, but it sounds like you got a frog in the throat, or should I say it's the other way round? He began to cackle louder as the mutated frog spat the landlord out of his mouth and into the wall, knocking him unconscious. Picking up a bit of an old newspaper clipping, Animo said, I'm so close to getting what is rightfully mine. All I need is a few lousy components, and I'll be able to finish my work. So whether your need from hairspray to electronics. Animo suddenly heard a peppy commercial on the TV, where it explained about the new Megamart that opened up. Seeing this, Dr. Animo said, just what the doctor ordered. with the Tennysons. Naruto, Ben, Gwen and Max were walking in a superstore with Max pushing the trolley and Ben looking left and right, excited at the items he was seeing. Ben spotted the aisle he was looking for, the cereal aisle, and he then rushed to pick up the first box of Sumo Slammer cereal he found. Sumo Slammer cards, cool! Ben exclaimed as he saw it on the prize section of the box. He had a mischievous smirk on his face as he saw Max and Gwen were busy looking for food while Naruto was in the electronics section. He looked at his Omnitrix and a plan formed in his head. With Naruto was just browsing through the electronics section wondering on how far Ben had progressed in his training. He was impressed at how Ben was able to improvise with Heat Blast, and when he mastered how to control his flames, he was proud. Now he was thinking of what alien he should train next and what alien he should unlock as a gift should Ben master 5 of his aliens. Gray Matter? No, he doesn't need any familiarization with him. How about Ghost Freak? No, I just get this odd feeling whenever Ben turns into that alien, and what was it that Asmuth said about ectonurites? I'll think about it when I have the time. Now who should I train next? He was forced out of thought when Gwen asked his grandfather a question. No offense, Grandpa, but can we have a normal dinner for once? That now got him to remember that he needed to buy some real food and hide it from his grandfather, so he went to the pasta section of the store, and quickly selected pasta, and then trailed off to the canned food section to pick up some spices for the sauce he was going to use. He paid for the item and sealed it in a scroll, pocketing it, and when he passed the cereal section, he saw Gwen holding a small gray toy that moved on her arms hidden at her back, talking to the store manager. He walked over to them and asked, "Is something the matter?" "Yes," the store manager said. "This young lady over here thought that it would be a good idea to open these boxes of cereal spread all over the place." He motioned to the mess around them and Naruto knew instantly it was Ben that did it, and sighed. "I'll handle it from here and pay for the boxes," Naruto said, and the manager smiled in appreciation before he left. They heard a beeping noise and Gwen decided it was time to have payback, so she let Ben fall to the ground as Gray Matter. "Why did you have to do that?" Gray Matter asked in a squeaky voice before a bright light occurred and Ben was seen in the place of Gray Matter holding his injured ass. "Ben," Naruto said, warning him. "Sorry, won't happen again, I swear," Ben said, knowing that his brother can be scary at times. Naruto sighed and motioned for them to gather the boxes while he went for Grandpa. Later, by the cash register, Naruto was just bringing out his wallet, irritated that he had to pay for what his idiot of a brother did. Ben was scowling that he didn't get what he wanted and Gwen was beside Naruto, annoyed at Ben also. Max was just confused as to how this happened. As they were about to pay for the items, they started to feel mini quakes and the store started to shake, forcing the manager to hide under the table in panic. Crash! The wall beside them exploded and as the smoke cleared, it revealed Dr. Anemo on Hit Frog entering the store. "Whoa!" an awed Ben said while Gwen and Max looked surprised. Naruto, not so much. Anemo ignored them and looked to the electronics section. He jumped down his frog because he found what he wanted and went to claim it, but Ben wasn't standing for any of that. "Hey! What are you doing?" he asked the Dr. as he stole the items while the rest of his family tried to shut him up. "Don't be a hero, kid," Anemo said as he walked to Ben. "Just run along and play." Ben looked at his powered-down Omnitrix and on instinct dodged a tongue sent his way by the frog. Anemo walked to his frog and sat on it, but as he was about to make a getaway, he was halted by 2 mall cops. "Freeze!" Officer 1 ordered. "Get down of that giant frog and put your hands up." Anemo smirked and hopped over the officers, heading to the animal section of the store to find some new experiments, as the officer tried to call for backup. As he reached the aisle he was looking for, Anemo turned the dial on his chest and aimed the rays that shot out at the pets, 2 in particular, a hamster and a bird. Both animals mutated into a bigger, nastier version of themselves, and Anemo ordered them, "Arise to your full potential, my pets." Meanwhile, Ben and the rest of his family just arrived to see the mutated animals grow big, and Ben had to make a comment. "Whoa, what kind of pet foods are they serving around here? I know I wouldn't want to buy it," Naruto said, and Gwen and Max agreed. "Behold, the genius of Dr. Aloysius James Anemo," he announced to his awed audience. "Nothing can stop me from getting what I deserve. Mark my words, today I'll make history, or should it be prehistory?" "Ben?" Gwen asked. "The Omnitrix is out, I can't help," Ben explained, and they all turned to Naruto, who was looking at them confused. "What?" he asked. "Aren't you going to help?" Ben asked. "Think of it as experience," Naruto explained what would you do if the Omnitrix wasn't available. The giant hamster roared at them and they all stepped back along with Naruto, who didn't really want to hurt the animals, but with the way the hamster has started chasing them, he had to reconsider. It wasn't until he leapt over him and Ben and cornered Max and Gwen that he decided to end it. He spotted a ball and threw it at the hamster, telling Ben to take cover. "Hey ugly, come and get it," Naruto said as he got into the Goken stance, giving the hamster a come-hither motion, to which it obliged by charging angrily at Naruto, who were ignoring the yells of Gwen and Max as he waited for the hamster to reach him before he ducked under the charge and gave it a kick on its stomach, sending it flying up before he used the shelves as support to help him leap higher than the hamster, and unconsciously added his chakra to his leg, adding more power to its blow before flipping and giving it a dropkick, sending it crashing down heavily to the ground, knocking it out completely. "That was awesome," Gwen cheered from her spot. "Thanks for the save, kiddo," Max said, still reeling from the brief run he had, something that Ben noticed from his spot. "Are you okay, Grandpa?" he asked, and Max waved his worry away. That was until the ground shook, signaling the return of Animo, who was pissed. "You fool, you cannot stop me," Animo said. "I will turn Washington D.C. into Washington B.C. With that, he got off his frog and leapt on the mutated bird that came to pick him up, and they both left the store with the frog following behind. "You saved the store," the store manager said, "coming to see the monsters leave. If there's anything I can do to repay you, anything you want." Ben suddenly got a devious idea and smirked. Well, he would have continued. That was until Max dragged him of the store with Gwen and Naruto in tow, on the road. The RV was on the road chasing the giant bird with Animo on top of it, with Max behind the wheels trailing the bird. "Ah, this reminds me of the good old day," Max said to Ben, who was at the front seat sulking for his loss of his sumo slammer cards. "Before I retired, Gwen noticed something wrong here and asked, so what kind of plumber were you?" Max stuttered a bit and answered, "A darn good one." "Ben, stop sulking in front," Naruto said from the other side of the back seat where Gwen was sitting. "You'll get the cards next time." "Fine," Ben said after he sighed, making Naruto sigh in relief until they heard ringing from Gwen's computer. "Bingo," Gwen said, catching everyone's attention. 5 years ago, Animo was a promising researcher in veterinary science, but it turns out, he was mutating animals, and when he didn't win some big prize, well, he threw a tantrum like a baby and vowed revenge? Naruto asked, and Gwen nodded. "Didn't he say he wanted to make prehistory?" Max asked while driving. "That's it. I know where he's going," Ben exclaimed, much to the surprise of Gwen, and as he told them his idea, they drove to the one place they knew he would be from what they just realized, the Natural History Museum. As they packed the RV, Ben, Max and Gwen came out of the vehicle rushing inside the museum with Naruto staying behind, something that Gwen noticed. "Why aren't you coming?" she asked, catching the attention of the other two. "Yeah, we could use the help," Ben said. "You guys go on. There's something I want to check out first," Naruto said, and Ben and Max headed to the door with Gwen waiting behind, voicing her curiosity. "What do you want to do that made you stay behind?" she asked. "Something that I've been working on that I want to give a test run," Naruto said. "It's just a prototype though." "Can I see?" she eagerly asked. "In due time. Now head in after those two and be careful out there," Naruto said, waving off her curiosity. "I don't want to lose one of the first real friends I have." "Here." Gwen blushed and left Naruto to his devices, something he was glad for. He went back into the RV and picked up his bag and brought out a box, opening it, revealing a black ninja face mask with red outlines around the edges. He went to the washroom and looked in the mirror, seeing himself before putting on the mask over his head. Red seals appeared all over his body, and seconds later, he was wearing a full-body black ninja spandex that fit him perfectly, with red outlines around all the edges of the feet, arms, and he had on a red scarf and red martial arts belt on his hips. Only his bright blue eyes could be seen through the eye holes as he was inspecting the suit he made on his own. "Not bad," Naruto said as he looked himself in the mirror. "Now to take this for a test run." He then brought out 3 smoke bombs and dropped them on the floor, forcing them to explode, and as they cleared, he was gone as well, with the others. Max, Gwen and Ben were in the museum, following the trail of feathers and destruction left by the insane doctor. "Wow, never thought I'd spend my summer vacation visiting a history museum," Ben said. "Even a dweeb like you needs to learn a thing or two before school resumes," Gwen insulted, causing Ben to pout at the jab. "Now kids, we're not here to argue, we're looking for the mad doctor," Max said as they turned into a corner. "And I think we found him," Ben said, spotting Animo working. Animo heard the noise and looked up from his work. "You're too persistent." "I hate persistent," he said before he aimed his rays on the dead bone of a mammoth displayed in the museum. Now time for step 2 of my plan, he said, and activated his transmodulator, firing at the bones and before the very eyes of the Tennysons. The mammoth was alive with all its flesh intact, and it seemed angry if the red eyes on its face was anything to go by. Behold the genus that is Animo. Animo announced before he left the mammoth to deal with these pests. Ben, Gwen said. On it, Ben said, and he turned into 4 arms as he pressed the dial on his chest. Let's wrestle. He then charged the mammoth with all his might, giving his grandpa and cousin a chance to go after Animo, something they took advantage of. With Gwen and Max saw Animo in the dinosaurs section looking at the Triceratops bone, and before they could stop him, he fired his transmodulator beam at the bones, bringing the species back to life and ordering it to attack the Tennysons along with the bird that just arrived. As Animo saw they were distracted, he fired the beam at the bones of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, bringing it back to life before jumping on it. No one will stop me from getting what is rightfully mine, he yelled out before he left his pets to deal with the Tennysons that were doing all they could to evade the monsters in front of them. That is, until something was thrown at said monsters, distracting them, and a voice spoke out to them. Hey ugly, get ready to be extinct. Again. When Gwen and Max looked, they saw a figure about the same height as Naruto in a black ninja jumpsuit with a red vertical line along the front of the outfit from its neck to its hip that was wrapped up in a red GI belt that fit with the outfit. His mask had a vertical red outline from its head to its eyes, and he wore a dark red scarf. He was standing on the wall looking down on them, but Gwen noticed those eyes that were revealed. Probably the only thing revealing about the suit. Those who watched Randy Cunningham 9th grade ninjas should know the suit I'm referring to. If not, look it on Google. Well, that and the suit never hid the hair design, and she just put 2 and 2 together and smirked. Is this the thing you said you were getting out of the RV? She asked, surprising Max as he had no idea who this person was and wanted in his RV. Of course, only a smart girl like you would be able to realize the boy she has a crush on has a mask, Naruto said, causing Gwen to blush. I do not have a crush on you, Gwen muttered to herself. Naruto chuckled to himself, and Max realized who this was. Naruto? He asked. As Naruto wanted to answer, the wall shook and Naruto saw that the Triceratops below him. He looked back to Max hold that thought. He then materialized a sword and jumped to the ground a few feet away from the creature before he dashed towards it, and jumped to the wall as the dinosaur charged at him. He then readied his sword and jumped from the wall, landing in front of the Triceratops before his sword started to hum. He closed his eyes in meditation as time slowed down when the Triceratops charged at him again. When Naruto opened his eyes, he was behind the Triceratops in a burst of speed. As he materialized the sheath, he gave the sword a 540 spin before slowly sheathing it with a cling, simultaneously calling out the name of the skill set. Mu Seigen no Kensai Sakujo. Unlimited blade works. The Triceratops burst into tiny pieces as deep slashes appeared all over its body, getting rid of it completely. The bird saw this and went to attack Gwen, that was currently amazed at what she and her grandpa saw, but noticed the bird moments later and picked up a staff before using it to attack the bird. He's not the only one with moves, you know, Gwen said as the bird retreated briefly before Naruto appeared in front of them. Yo! He greeted. How did you do that? Gwen asked, wanting to know how to do what he did, but as he was about to answer, he had to duck an incoming attack from the bird that was behind him, but that was a mistake as it used its talons to pick up Gwen by her bag before escaping with her. It was at that time 4 Arms arrived, seeing his cousin being taken hostage, and without giving it any thought, he went after the bird, leaving Max and Naruto behind. So, how did you get the suit? Max asked his adoptive grandson. With minor help from my smart aliens, I managed to build a prototype biosuit that helps unlock dormant powers if only you wear the mask. It would only accept those with dormant abilities and help them experience what they could do if said skill set is unlocked, Naruto explained. So the ninja thing? Max asked. My chakra's all but gone. He doesn't know it's healed yet, but I am the result of 2 powerful ninjas, even though I despise them so very, very much, Naruto said, and instantly, he knew who Naruto was referring to. Why don't we go help Ben and Gwen? Max suggested later, and Naruto agreed before he pulled off the mask, and 1 seal work later, he was back to his civilian attire. Later, Ben was lying in a crater created by his alien form as he failed in catching the bird, letting it fly away with his cousin. He got up and out of the crater only to see the RV stop in front of him with Max looking at him. Did someone call for a taxi? He asked, and Ben smiled before he got into the vehicle. They were driving when they heard the cell phone in the RV ringing. "Grandpa?" Naruto asked. "On it," Max replied and moved to where the signal was coming from, the Washington Monument. As all three reached their destination, they rushed out of the RV to see Gwen's cell drop on the ground, hearing her screams of terror. "It's hero time," Ben said, and he dialed up an alien he wanted, and moments later, Ben was Stinkfly. He fluttered his wings and took off to save his cousin, whose grip slipped, but was grateful for the save that was until Ben had to evade the bird heading his way. "I think I'm gonna puke," Gwen said from her cousin's back. "Spew on me and you better learn to fly fast," Stinkfly said as he kept on evading the bird. Max and Naruto saw the trouble that both were having, and Naruto decided. "I'm helping," he said as he dialed up the alien he wanted. He smacked the faceplate on his watch, and in a flash of green light later, he was Chitrax. "Gotta run," and with a dash of speed, he ran to the monument. Ben saw the green light and knew his brother had transformed. "You're gonna have to trust me," he said to Gwen, who nodded, and he was heading to the monument, where he saw a blue/black streak running on the walls, and as he reached it, he threw Gwen, who screamed in terror but was calmed down as the blur caught her and landed her on the ground safely. "You okay?" Naruto asked, and Gwen nodded. After muttering her thanks, he looked at Ben, who was floating above them. "Let's go get Anemo," he said, and one good luck later, both left to deal with the insane doctor once and for all. "With Anemo, and here is my Verities Award. It was an honor to be nominated with a distinguished group of scientists," Kelly Reed said, chuckling at the last part, which was until a crash was heard followed by a wall coming down. The scientists were granted the strange sight of a green man riding on a T-Rex. "Kelly, I do believe you have something that is mine," Anemo said before he jumped down and grabbed the award with the speech he prepared. "I'd like to thank the committee for this honor." He then got on his pet dinosaur and moved to attack his former colleague, but was stopped as he was punched out of his dinosaur by a blur, and his dinosaur was attacked moments after. Naruto and Ben arrived just in time to stop Anemo from attacking a civilian, something that displeased the doctor, so he sent his dinosaur to attack them, but Naruto told Ben to distract it while he dealt with the doctor. "What are you?" Anemo said, scared, as Chitrax picked him up from his collar. "Your one-way ticket to defeat," Naruto said before he knocked Anemo out, and grabbed the transmodulator from his head and crushed it with his hand, sending a shockwave of energy around a 250-mile radius. The mutated animals returned to their original form, and Anemo was captured by the police, currently on his way to jail, all the way screaming his revenge on the one that stopped him. Meanwhile, the Tennysons were driving out of D.C. after this adventure they had, hoping to take a break for some time. "I didn't get that gold sumo slammer card, but at least I got a souvenir," Ben said, holding the crushed transmodulator on his hand before placing it in the box in front of him and his cousin, "plus I guess saving the city is his own reward." "Don't forget, you and Naruto saved me," Gwen said. "Thanks, both of you." "No problem, Gwen," Naruto said from his place beside Max, and Ben waved off her thanks as well. "So Naruto, tell me something," Gwen said. "Do you have any more inventions? And how does that bio-ninja suit work?" Here she had to suppress a smirk as she caught Ben's attention and heard Naruto groan. "Ninja suit?" Ben asked his brother, who had to look back and glare to a smug Gwen before he sighed and explained to his family. "This was going to be a really long summer. How did I get myself into this mess?" was the thought of one Gwendolyn Tennyson, who was currently tied up and gagged in what looked like a cargo hold in a ship, if the swaying motion of the thing she was on and the smell of the sea was anything to go on by. She looked on and saw females on the ship in a similar situation, and could only think of one thing about it, and it wasn't pretty. She wondered how Naruto and Ben were doing, as she was sure Naruto would notice she was missing, and Ben would most likely not because of his idiotic short attention span. It was 3 days after the squabble with Anemo in D.C., and Naruto was busy training Ben in his alien forms. They were working on XLR8. Most times, he and Ben would go on races across the continent to get Ben used to the Kinesellerin's speed, and she decided that she'd take a stroll. They were a few cities away from D.C., and she was bored and wanted to explore the library they had here, but when she made a wrong turn, she was trapped, and when she wanted to leave, she was cornered and captured. The men had something like headbands on their arms and said something about agato, something she had a fishy feeling about. She was about to move when the door opened to reveal a man with black hair that reached his shoulder. He had black eyes and that arrogant smirk on his face. On his back was a sword in its sheath over a black short-sleeved shirt, and wore blue-black trousers and a pair of dark blue sandals. He crouched down at her, and sneered, picking up her chin with his finger. "Looks like Gado's going to have a field time with you guys, and I'll be swimming in the best things money could buy once we sell off you sluts," he said, and violently let go of her head to hit the solid ground below. He stood up and looked around the room to the women who were cowering at the mere sight of him. "We'll be arriving the port soon, so if I were you, I'd put on my best makeup to impress your buyers, but wait, you can't because you're tied up, ha 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 ha." He was chuckled as he left the room, and Gwen prayed that someone would come save her from this horror. Meanwhile, as Gwen was being held hostage, in the office of Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, he was looking at the ninja team of Team 7 with current team members, Uchiha Sasuke, the last member of the Uchiha clan since his mother was in a coma, and the current Rookie of the Year, Haruno Sakura, his #1 fangirl, and Nami Uzumaki Namikaze, the current heir to the Uzumaki clan and the holder of the Ien part of the Kyuubi no Yoko's chakra. Ever since Naruto left Konoha, word got out on what happened and how he treated his own son. The daimyo of Fire Country heard about it, and decided to come to the village to not only give a piece of his mind but also draw back some of the funds handed to Konoha because he was disappointed in how a village would treat the boy, and the villagers were not happy when it was announced saying the demon deserved it. Kushina was only steps away from breaking off their marriage until she was promised a change of behavior from both him and Nami and better ruling of the village from now on, and since he said that the village had changed, now the villagers were all getting fair treatment, and he removed the corrupt civilians from the council and also shot down some store owners that were overpricing his son and replaced them with less competent store owners. He also decided to change up the academy curriculum, increasing the amount of physical abilities, adding tree and eater walking to the final year of the academy brochure and introducing elemental natures there, as well as helping each final year know what their elemental nature is. When he found out that Nami had one for wind and water, he was excited. He knew he would have to now up her training if she wants to be the Hokage of their village and protect it like her father before her, and if possible, apologize to her brother for the way she treated him. Nami was another thing that surprised him with the change of her character, but he was willing to bet Kushina's punishment had something to do with it. She was a spoiled brat, and it pained him that it took Naruto leaving for him to realize it, and he was even more ashamed when he found out he was part of what spoiled her in the first place. That was when Kushina and he decided that she would be leaving on her own for 6 months just to give her a taste of what her life would be like without her parents, and he gave his daughter another special assignment: Henjin to Naruto and find out what his life was and the villagers that made it unbearable so that he can do something about it. At first, she refused it but then relented after she was told the rewards, so she had to Henjin to her brother, not knowing the disadvantages it would bring to her. Nami's first half of the punishment, according to her, was unbearable. No body to support you, living on your own after your friends abandon you for the lack of fame, and so on. It was even worse when she had to Henjin to Naruto, but then she had an epiphany after seeing the way he was treated and decided that from then on, she would change from the better, and if she could, apologize to her brother for the way she treated him in the past, and had a serious talking to her friends that had gotten back with her after their release from their parents, about the way they treat her brother. He himself knew he had a lot of making up to do once Naruto's been returned. Besides that power he used to defeat Kakashi and the rest of the ANBU, it would be useful in the village, so he needed to know where he got that from. He looked at Sasuke and was disappointed in how he had changed from the sweet little boy they all knew into the arrogant prick before them. Ever since the death of his clan and the hospitalization of his mother, he seemed to shut himself up and was on a one-way path to revenge that Minato knew won't end well. It also didn't help that he had fangirls that helped boosted his ego too, and he had no real idea why the elders placed Sakura on the same team with him. Now he and the rest of his team were standing before him and Minato started to talk. Team 7, it is with great honor I assign to you your first C-rank mission. Given your track records on how well you complete the D ranks assigned to you, I have high expectations that you will complete this mission with the utmost efficiency, he said, and the team puffed their chest in pride, and the Hokage continued, I think it's time I sent in the mission. He then pressed a button on his desk. Please send in the guest. Hi Hokage-sama, the secretary said from her workspace, and the door opened to reveal Tazuna, a drunken old man who smelt of liquor and bad breath. What is this, a children's party? Tazuna insulted as he saw the place reek with children, or more like the meeting of the clowns with the variety of hair colors and style around here. Team 7 started to get pissed off. We have the duck butt hairstyle. As if that's not freaky enough, then there's the one with the tomato head and the one with the wide forehead that I'm sure inside it is a very tiny brain. It took all of the ANBU in the room to hold down a vengeful Nami and Sakura that were calling out for blood at the audacity of this man. Minato meanwhile sighed at the display that his ninja were showing, but he can't blame them. After all, they are just kids that are made to kill. This is Tazuna, the man that you're supposed to escort in this C-rank mission. Your duty is to protect the bridge builder from any outside threats that may interfere with his journey back. Minato explained. But what threats could a bridge builder pose to anyone? Nami asked. Let me give you an example, Kakashi said, not knowing that he was about to give out the entire mission specs. Say a tyrant took over a small country that runs a shipping industry. Said tyrant wouldn't want anything blocking the ships from its paths, ships that carry in them illegal items of course, and say someone like Tazuna here were to build a bridge for whatever reason, maybe to allow access for trade to other countries near his village, I don't know. Kakashi explained the tyrant gets word of this and sends mercenaries to end the life of the builder that wants to block his trading route. Kakashi explained, not taking note of the slight twitching coming from Tazuna as he was giving his example, but Minato noticed it. Oh, I get it, Nami said, then looked to Tazuna. Looks like we have a mission that needs to be dealt with in the utmost proficiency. Sasuke said, not caring for anything else except for power to kill his brother. When you put it that way, it does make sense, Sakura said. Good, meet me tomorrow at the front gate at exactly 7 a.m., Kakashi said, and he left with a shushin, leaving the others in the room to leave the office except Nami, who suddenly had a sad expression on her face. Do you think we'll find him? Nami asked in a hopeful tone, knowing her father knew who he was referring to. I don't know, Nami. What are the chances that we'll encounter Naruto in this mission? Minato asked, looking at the only picture they had of Naruto. I just hope he's okay wherever he is. I just want to tell him how sorry for how much of a bitch to him I've been, but we can all hope, Nami said, sighing in the end of that statement, wishing she knew where Naruto was so that he could come home, and they can be a whole family once more. Unknown to them, it would be a long day in hell before that happens, with the Tennysons. That's it, Naruto said, startling Ben, who was browsing through his list of aliens. What's wrong? Ben asked his big brother. Gwen hasn't been here all day and it's already dawn. Night time. We need to search for her, Naruto said. Who cares, she's just a dweeb that gets on my back. Ben said, she'll be fine. I for one do love the peace and quiet. Naruto just stared shocked at what his brother was saying. He then slapped his brother on the back of his head painfully hard. Oh, you idiot, she's your family. And family should always be there for each other, he said. Now turn into Wildmutt so you can track her scent. Naruto walked into the RV to pick up something of Gwen as Ben transformed, and as he got back, he held a pair of her shirt to his face, to which Ben took a whiff off and gave Naruto a thumbs up. Lead the way, Naruto said, and he hopped on Ben's back as they both left to the area Gwen was seen last. One journey later, Ben and Naruto ended in what looked like a narrow alley that can be used to easily mug someone if they aren't careful. Naruto got of Ben and tapped the Omnitrix symbol on his brother's shoulder, transforming him back to Ben, who looked around. This is where her scent is strongest, the rest was just mixed with others, Ben said, and looked to his brother, who was browsing through his own playlist of aliens. How are you going to find her with no leads? He asked. Naruto got the alien he wanted with this, he said as he smacked the faceplate, and in a flash of green light, he was replaced with a large yellow alien with lines on his body and a copper skin. On his chest, where the Omnitrix symbol was seen, was a transparent glass 3 times the diameter of the Omnitrix. You could see gears twisting and turning, and on his head was a key that was stable. What does this guy do? Ben asked. Chronos is my name and time is my game, Naruto/Chronos, clockwork, said in a robotic voice. He then stepped forward and activated its past viewing powers. To Ben, he was amazed at seeing everything around them rewind to the beginning. At first, he was surprised, but then he adapted, wanting to know what happened to his cousin. Naruto was busy rewinding time till he got to where he wanted. Look, Jin, the little girlie wandered off on her own, a man said as they cornered Gwen on the alley. Well, Haru, what do you suppose we do? His partner, Jin, asked. Well, we could sell her of Tagato along with the rest, Haru answered his friend easily with a smirk. That's a lovely idea, Jin said, and he cracked his hand, now facing a quivering Gwen. Now, little girl, are we going to do this the easy way or the hard way? Don't hurt the merchandise too much, Jin. With the way she looks, I reckon she would be a knockout when she's older. Haru wisely said, and Jin agreed, and they both crept to Gwen, who was too scared to do anything even though she knew she could beat them up easily. Here Naruto stopped the transmission and cut it off. He took a deep breath and pressed the dial on the alien, turning to his human self. He was taking deep, calming breaths and looked to Ben, who was confused. What just happened? Ben asked his brother. Ben, turn to XLR8 and run to the RV, Naruto calmly said, and Ben wanted to protest this action, but Naruto turned to him with a glare and ordered now. Ben, not wanting to be on the receiving end of his brother's rage, did as he was told, and as he was sure Ben was gone, Naruto walked to the garbage disposal and gave it a metal-breaking punch that damaged it. He then closed his eyes and kept taking deep breaths to calm himself down before he opened them, and if he were to look closely, he would have noticed that the pupil of his eyes had turned into slits, but he was too deep in rage to focus. He then finally calmed down and turned into rush before speeding off to the RV in order to search for who this Gato is and then make those two idiots pay dearly. Later, Ben was in the RV thinking on how Naruto was acting lately. He didn't hear the door open and his grandpa walk in. Is something the matter? He heard when Max asked. Naruto has been acting weird since we found out Gwen's been kidnapped, Ben said, something that caught his grandpa's attention. Gwen's been kidnapped? Max asked, and just then Naruto walked in replying his question. Yes, she has, he said, and he got his laptop starting the search for Gato, and where he is, and if anything happens to her, I'm going to destroy him. Ben and Max knew Naruto wasn't kidding when he said that, so they silently prayed for the safety of his cousin/granddaughter. With Gwen. While Naruto was busy searching for Gato, Gwen was wondering how long it was since she got here. Currently, she was in a room with the same hostages from before and some other that were new to her. She knew that some of them had worse conditions than her because of the way they looked and the defeated look on their faces, and this only sparked her decision to leave immodestly, but for the life of her. She couldn't get these chains to budge off, but she couldn't, so she had to sit as one of their watchers walked in and grabbed a struggling hostage with them out of the room to do who knows what with her. Gwen, for the first time in her life, had never been so scared for her safety than she was at the moment. As she tried to get off the bindings, she wondered if Ben even noticed that she was gone. He probably wouldn't care, but she knew that once Naruto knew, he would come to the rescue, but that didn't stop her from trying to free herself. She knew that she had to get out, else be treated like an item only meant to be sold, something that didn't sit well in her book. Area: Elemental Nations, location unknown. 3 days later. It's been a week since the mission for Team 7 was assigned, and things were surprising to say the least. If they knew that Kakashi were this good in predicting possible outcomes in a mission's future, their team would have been swimming in higher rank missions, or the village would be more prosperous than it was since the daimyo cut the finding from it. So far, their mission was to escort the bridge builder to Nami no Kuni safely, something that they thought was going to be easy. That is when the first quarter of the journey was reached, and they had to face the illustrious duo that is the Demon Brothers, hiding under a pathetic illusion that only one as useless as Sakura couldn't see. Later, they interrogated the builder as to why he was being pursued by dangerous shinobi, and once they got the answer, they decided, after a vote, to continue on the mission, but not before calling back up, something Pakken was used to do. As they continued the journey, they encountered Zabuza Momoichi, the demon of the hidden mist, and the battle between Jounin begun. Something that was way too intense for them, but they knew that their teacher would win, and that was proven only after some tag team work between Sasuke and Nami was engaged in order to free Kakashi from the water prison he was trapped in earlier. The fight was neck and neck, with their sensei copying his opponent's move down to every last detail, but it was only after Zabuza was placed in an illusion that Kakashi was able to win, and just as he was about to end it, a hunter Nin appeared claiming to collecting Zabuza's bounty. It wasn't until after they left that the team realized that they'd been had, and just as they were about to go after them, Kakashi collapsed, and they took him for medical checkup in the builder's house. They estimated that it would be 1 week before Zabuza was able to move on his feet again in the builder's house after they introduced themselves to the rest of Tazuna's family, Inari, his grandson, and Tsunami, his daughter. Right now, Sakura and Tsunami were preparing for dinner once a knock was heard on the door. Tsunami excused herself and went to open the door, and she was face to face with the most disturbing specimen of a man the world has to offer. What a youthful evening it is! I am Might Guy, Konoha's sublime green beast of prey, and I, along with my team of youthful genin, are here to assist my eternal rival and his team of genin in this most youthful C-rank mission. A booming voice that sent chills down the crippled Kakashi's spine said from the door, and as he turned, He nearly had a heart attack from who was standing. Sure, he had heard the name before, but he just wanted to make sure that it was not who he thought it was, but he was surely mistaken as he saw the person on the door. Guy was a tall man that had a bullhead haircut and a wide smile on his face. He had on a green jumpsuit with his head band on his waist and a pair of orange leg warmers on each leg. He also had on the traditional Jounin vest, opened completely. Behind him were his genin. The one that stood out the most was his mini-me, a kid that dressed exactly like him except the jacket. The other two were okay in terms of dressing. The female member of the team was wearing a simple pink Chinese dress with green trousers that showed her figure. She had her hair tied in buns and had a pair of round brown eyes, and she had her toolkit strapped on her right leg like most shinobi do, and she wore her headband on her head. The other male member of the team was a hyuga. He had the traditional hairstyle of the male family along with their white eyes. He had on a brown long-sleeved shirt with straps and a pair of brown shorts. He had his headband strapped to his forehead and wore the normal blue shinobi sandals that all shinobi wore. Trio of genin were Rock Lee, Tenten Fujin and Niji Hyuga, the students of his self-appointed eternal rival. Of all the people they had to send, Kakashi muttered, but unfortunately, Guy heard and looked over Tsunami's shoulder. "Hello, my youthful rival. How are you on this glorious evening?" he greeted, earning a wince from how loud he was. Kakashi just ignored him and started reading his book, something that got twitches on the females' faces before he finally said, "Huh, did you say something? Curse you and your hip cool attitude, my eternal rival," Guy said as he started ranting of the unyouthfulness of his rival. Lee was watching his sensei and all marveling at how his sensei was but Tenten and Niji just shook their head in annoyance at the display before apologizing for their sensei's act. "Sorry, our sensei can get eccentric sometimes. I hope it's no bother to you," the female, Tenten, said to Tsunami, who waved it off. "No worries, I can deal with it," Tsunami said with a smile. "Fate decided to let our current mission quickly come to an end in order to help the team of pathetic weaklings currently guarding you," the white-eyed Hyuga said, which earned him a smack at the back of his head from his female comrade. "What Niji is trying to say is that we were sent as backup to help Team 7 in their current mission. Hope that we're not imposing too much," Tenten said in place of her teammate, and Tsunami had to thank the gods that there was at least one sane person on the team. "Please do come in, we were just preparing for dinner," Tsunami said, and she moved herself out of the way and allowed Tenten and her team to enter the house. The team stepped in after they thanked Tsunami for her hospitality. Luckily, Sakura left earlier to go fetch her teammates from their training, unknowingly avoiding the weirdness that is Team Guy, but Kakashi wasn't so lucky. Later, Sakura, Nami and Sasuke just came back with Sakura dragging the other two from an intense sparring session. Their clothes were messed up to continue, so they had to go back to get changed and get something to eat before heading to sleep. They encountered Team Guy, something that was a weird experience for them, especially for Sakura because of the weird boy that declared her love for her and demanded that they go out. Something she refuted immodestly because of how ridiculous it sounded. Dejected, the boy decided to try again until his teammates put a stop to it, apologizing for his attitude, something Sakura greatly appreciated, and once they settled down, they all had dinner and had to turn in for the night, but not before meeting the brooding Inari, who snapped at the way they were acting. Something that Niji didn't appreciate, so he decided to give the boy a piece of his mind and comment on how useless he was being at the moment. Lee didn't appreciate the put-down, so he scolded his teammate while Tenten had to console the young boy. Seeing the young boy reminded Nami of her older twin brother. That's why she left the room quickly, so as to avoid the pain it brought her, and she didn't want her teammates to see her cry. Sasuke also had to leave because of how annoying the brat was being, and seeing Sasuke leave fueled Sakura's desire to leave as well. The others noticed Team 7's imminent departure and decided that it was time to leave for the night, so they bid everybody their good night. With Nami, the following morning, Nami was waking up from her sleep in this area that she found, an area filled with white flowers and trees. It was very beautiful to the naked eye at sunrise. She looked to her left and saw a very pretty boy walking into the field with a basket of flowers. "Good morning," the boy said as he saw the field was occupied already. "Good morning, my name is Nami, what's yours?" Nami asked. "I'm Haku," Haku introduced. "What are you doing here early in the morning?" he asked. "Just needed to cool off from something that depressed me last night," Nami said. "Are you a shinobi?" Haku asked, seeing her headband tied on her head. "Yup," she replied cheerfully. "I want to be strong to be the Hokage of my village," Nami said. "Why do you want to be Hokage?" Haku said. because by then, I would have had the power to help look for something. Nami explained, thinking of how her father won't allow her to go on her own to search for her brother, how she was stopped time and time again from leaving. Why settle with that? Haku asked, and Nami looked confused. Why not use the power you have to protect those precious to you? That is the way to become strong, because the emotion needed would help strengthen your resolve, Haku explained. Nami just looked dumbfounded. I never thought of it that way, Nami said as she walked to him and both started to pick herbs, / During the exercise, they both exposed some of their secrets to each other, comfortable with the setting that was provided, and by the time they finished talking, they were done. Thanks for the advice. I'll be sure to follow it, Nami said as they got up, helping Haku prepare to leave. Haku turned around, waving the thanks away, but before he made the fourth step, he turned around. By the way, I'm a girl, Haku said as he left a dumbfounded Nami behind. There's no way, Nami thought as she saw Haku walk with a sway of her hips as if to enforce her point. That was just borderline creepy, with the Tennysons. By the time Naruto decided to start searching for Gato, Ben was secretly twinkling with his Omnitrix, twisting and turning it from side to side trying to find out its secrets. Naruto told Ben to leave if he couldn't stay quiet, so he did, leaving Naruto in peace. By the time Ben left, Naruto was close to finding about Gato using his computer. He got the general area on where he should be located because of the businesses he's been doing, and his computer pointed out that most trade under his name originated from the Bermuda Lake. As he searched further, he got a satellite view of what was called the Bermuda Triangle. It was surrounded by a strange magnetic field with mythical properties that seemed to cause ships and other vessels disappear. Naruto closed his computer and thought that he should go inspect it, unaware of the spy that was looking in on him. But he decided to do it in the morning, hoping Gwen will be all right, and called Ben back, and who had a mysterious grin on his face. That was the night before. Currently, Naruto was standing in a port looking at the sea, coordinates of his destination locked in his head. He knew where he was going and didn't like it one bit. That's why he left before Ben woke up, because the place he was currently heading off to was really dangerous for him. He was dressed in brown long-sleeve pants and a black short-sleeve shirt with an orange short-sleeve jacket with a hood over it. He also wore a pair of white and orange sneakers. He brought his wrist to his chest, revealing his Omnitrix scrolling through the alien he wanted, and once he picked it, he slammed it down, and in a flash of green light, he was Rush, the Kinesileran. He put on his visor and dashed across the sea, running to his destination as quick as he can. Not a minute later, a green flash was seen, and Ben, who was gray matter before, was now XLR8, his own Kinesileran. He put on his own visor and said to himself, "If you think I can let you get away that easy, think again," he said, and in a dash of speed, XLR8 followed his big brother's trail, wanting to see what he was hiding from him and planning on having a little fun as well. Area: Elemental Nations. Location: Bermuda Triangle. 3 days after Naruto's search, chirping birds were heard in the background, stopping most fights as they turned to see Zabuza held, trapped by dogs, locking his forelimbs, looking at an angry Kakashi as he was holding his hand to his chest, and what surprised the viewers was the blue visible chakra that was being seen on it. Team Kakashi and Team Guy was currently fighting on the bridge with Team Zabuza. Current members: Zabuza, the Kiri Hunter Nin, and a boy that could grow bones from his body. A really hard combination. The current formation was Nami and Sasuke versus the Hunter Nin, Ninjutsu/Taijutsu battle. Lee and Niji versus the Bone Boy, Taijutsu battle, while the rest guard the bridge builder. What surprised them a bit was the sudden appearance of Kisame, something Guy took care of while Kakashi had to face Zabuza again. Like before, the fight was intense, but in the end, Kakashi had the upper hand, and was about to give the final strike to the trapped Zabuza by shoving his fist on his chest. That is, until the Bone Boy, tired from his battle with Lee and Niji, intercepted the blow, taking it instead, something that shocked the people in the area. As Kakashi was about to finish Zabuza again, he heard clapping, and they all turned to see a smirking Gato walk with his cane and an army of about 500 mercs behind him. Well, if it isn't the baby demon too weak to deal with his job," Gato said. "Gato," Zabuza growled. "Look, kid, it seems that business has become demanding, so I decided to cut my losses," Gato said. "But look on the bright side, I was never going to pay you." "What kind of bright side is that?" Tenten asked from her position guarding Tazuna. Gato shrugged. "You're right. It was a bright side for me, not for you," he said, and he waved to the people behind him. "Get rid of them now that they're too tired to defend themselves," he ordered after examining the exhausted senseis and genin in front of him. The mercs agreed to the order, moving in to attack the ninja who were too weak to defend themselves right now, but as they were about to advance further, they heard the sound of footsteps along the bridge, followed by what sounded like iron scraping metal, and it was then they heard the creepiest song of their life. Youthful slaughter, I won't leave a single man alive, la-da-da-da-die, genocide, la-da-da-da-dud, an ocean of blood, let us begin the killing time, the voice said, and this had certain reactions from the listeners. Guy and Lee were screaming about youth, Sakura, Tazuna, Gato and the mercs were scared. Ten and Nami, who just knocked out Haku and exited from the ice dome, were confused. Sasuke and Neji were scowling at the pathetic attempt to scare them. Zabuza was grinning at the song and knew he'd get along with the owner of the voice quite well. Kakashi just ignored it, but he knew he heard that song before, just couldn't place out where. They were looking to the source of the singing and saw a silhouette of a humanoid creature, and once the shadow got closer and closer, Kakashi's eyes widened in recognition of the diamond-shaped figure. And Naruto? He tentatively asked, catching the attention of Nami, who was confused as she didn't see her brother any there. Naruto/Rambai stopped walking and started a sprint along the bridge, his two hands shape-shifting into blades, heading for the mercs with only one goal in mind, since he'd seen the state of this city as he inspected it as Chitrax, kill all the mercs in front of him until Gato was left, and thus the bloodbath started. The audience except for Zabuza turned green at seeing so many kills in one place, slices all over and large diamonds encasing their victims, preventing any harm from escaping. Gato saw this and started to stealthily escape from here as quietly as he could. Unfortunately, once he got into his speedboat, a fish-like creature grabbed him just as Naruto/Rambai finished the last of the mercs. Where do you think you're going? The fish-like creature asked the shaking man in front of him, seemingly ignoring the fact that his brother just killed all those mercs. Please let me go, I'll give you anything, Gato stuttered out in fear of being killed by this monster. The fish humanoid thought about it. Nah, he said, and threw the midget to Rambai, who was walking towards their direction with a scowl on his face as he caught the midget. Then in a flash of green light, he was Uzumaki Naruto, who proceeded to pop out an unsheathed sword, surprising those who knew that he couldn't use skills like that. And Nizan? Nami stuttered in hope as she saw her big brother for the first time in 4 years. Who's that? Sakura asked. Guy-sensei, isn't that Naruto-kun? Lee asked his sensei. I see that the flames of youth have guided him well, Guy said, impressed at how strong his one-time student, if he could call him that, was alive as well. I thought he didn't have chakra, like Lee, Tenten said, confused about the whole ordeal. How did he get that power? Sasuke stuttered to himself. This is my one chance to capture him and bring him back to the Hokage. Kakashi thought, I want everyone to surround him and capture him at all costs. Kakashi ordered, be careful. He was able to take down Furi and Bu, me and the 4th Hokage at the age of 9. If he was able to do that, then how are we supposed to beat him? Tenten asked. That's an order, Kakashi said, and they all got up and moved to where Naruto was as he threw the scared body of Gato away. Naruto was about to scold Ben for disobeying his orders until he heard a voice that made him scowl. Naruto Uzumaki, by order of the 4th Hokage Leaf Village, you are under arrest, the voice said. Surrender peacefully or we'll resort to force. Naruto looked at his little brother. I was going to scold you for disobeying me, but it looks like when we get home, I'll have to think of another punishment, he said. Then he turned to the Leaf. If you think you can beat my little brother, then I'll come. If not, then this is goodbye, Naruto said. Then he turned into Chitrax and in a burst of speed, he left the area, leaving Ben to fight them. So all we have to do is beat this fish thing? Tenten asked. Unfortunately, Ben heard the insult and was offended. Hey! I'm a 10-year-old kid, he said, transforming back to Ben, surprising the audience. This is useless. I have better things to do than Konoha Senpu. Suddenly, Sasuke was sent spiraling upwards before he was given a drop kick, slamming him to the ground hard. Ben landed and fixed his clothes before taking the Goken stance. So, who's next? He asked with a smirk, seeing the scared look on some of their faces. Guy, did you teach him? Kakashi asked. Guy rubbed his chin and thought, young boy, did you say the Naruto-kun is your big brother? He asked Ben, who nodded. Guy snapped his fingers in realization. Oh, how youthful. Kakashi looked at Guy, who elaborated further. I gave Naruto a scroll on the 8 gates and the Goken on his 9th birthday, so it stands to reason that he passed on some of my teachings to this young boy. So you're the one that taught my brother? Ben asked, and by this time, Nami snapped. He isn't your brother, he's mine! She yelled. Who does this brat think he is to claim what was hers from the start? Sorry, I don't speak Harpy. Could you repeat that? Ben said, cleaning his ear. If anything, this made Nami even more upset that she started to unconsciously draw on the fox's chakra little by little. I like this brat, Zabuza said. He handled the Uchiha kid easily. And if he did that to the so-called Rookie of the Year, I wonder what he'll do to the rest. Unfortunately, nobody heard Zabuza. He used this given opportunity to go and pick up the knocked-out body of Haku before vanishing with a water shushin, leaving the leaf to their business. This is worthless. Unfortunately, the Uchiha was too weak to escape his fate of being too weak to defeat a 10-year-old. But fate is on my side tonight, Niji said with a serious expression. Okay, you know what, screw this, Ben said, and he picked the alien he wanted from his watch as the faceplate rose and slammed the faceplate down, and a minute later, he was heat blast. I'm really miffed about being treated like I'm weak. He then created fireballs on his hands. Let's see how weak I am after this. And with that, the battle between Ben and the ninja had begun, with Gwen. Gwen was tired, hungry and helpless, as she was the only one in the room that hadn't been raped. Something she was glad of when she figured out what they were doing to the women in the room who were too powerless to stop their assailants. So far, she'd eaten once, and it's been 6 days since she left, according to the conversation she overheard. Just as she was about to get some sleep, the door slammed open and in walked the 2 thugs that kidnapped her. They looked around the room and smirked at the defeated women until the first spoke. Looks like we've broken all of them, Haru. I don't think so, Jin, Haru said as he spotted Gwen, who started to shake as they started to make their way towards her with that sick look in their eyes. What do you think? He asked. I think she's a little young, Jin said, but we could train her to be our personal slut by the time she gets old. Complete brainwashing, Haru agreed as he bent down and picked up Gwen's face and caressed her cheek. Why don't we just give her a little of what's to come? Jin said, and as they were about to pick up the shivering Gwen, the wall behind them exploded and a cat-like human stood in place of the wall. Gwen sighed in relief as she saw that Naruto came to save her. She even started to cry a bit because of what she was about to experience had he not arrived. Naruto on his end had no time to share Gwen's sentiments, so he quickly took care of the thugs that kidnapped her in a burst of speed, followed by freeing the captured ladies before he walked to Gwen and freed her. Just as he was about to pick her up, he clung to him like he was her lifeline and started to sob uncontrollably. Naruto/Chitrax just knelt down and hugged her back. They were like that for a while until Gwen exhausted herself from crying and fell asleep in Naruto's chest. He used that opportunity to pick her up bridal style and bring her close to his chest, something she snuggled into, and in a burst of speed, he left the building heading to Ben's general location. Moments later, he arrived and saw that Ben was just facing Guy as XLR8, who was excited because this boy was able to take out every other person here. Just as he was about to attack the green-clad sensei, Ben heard a voice. Ben, I've got her. It's time to go. He turned around and saw that his brother had Gwen in his hand and turned back to Guy. Sorry to have to cut this short, but I got a plane to catch, he said as Naruto left. He gave Guy a clawed salute. Gotta run. He followed after Naruto with a burst of speed, trailing side by side with him. When we get to Max, you're going to be in so much trouble, Naruto said as he saw XLR8 running beside him. But I helped take down the bad guys. Ben whined. I don't care, Naruto said. You decided to obey my order, something I can't tolerate from you. Why? Ben asked. Because I promised Mom and Dad that I'll take care of you, something that you should appreciate greatly, Naruto explained. Speaking of Mom and Dad, that red-headed girl said that you were her brother, Ben said, confused. Care to explain that? He asked. Naruto sighed as he continued to run, knowing that it was going to be a long run to the RV, but hey, at least, Gwen was safe.